right, welcome everyone. So for today's webinar, we will be going over Fourlane's managed support and what it means for you and your team. We now offer a subscription service that can help with troubleshooting those QuickBooks technical issues. I also want to introduce our Fourlane managed support team, Jordan Parsons and Daniel Surratt. They're joining me today. My name is Lori Walsh. I am a partner here at Fourlane. We do appreciate all of you who have joined. All right, so on to today. What we have for you is we all know how stressful it is when we get a system error. We never get the opportunity to plan for that, and it's stressful. Don't know what to do with it. And even though we know, right, how bogged down it makes us, right, the biggest issue is what do we do when we get one? Who do we call? Where do we go? So we've tried to fix that for you to make that easier. We want to be the direction that you call. So we're going to provide the Fourlane advantage here. You will be able to have a quick response. We're going to help free up time for you and your team because we have a dedicated team here, Daniel and Jordan, who are going to be able to help you. We are US based. We're headquartered in Austin, and we can partner with Intuit on some of the system problems so that we can help get to a resolution quickly. So let's go over some of the specifics of our plan. We have a basic subscription, focuses on database integrity, such as errors, diagnosing corruption, maybe just getting those error codes and we're not sure what to do with them. We also have an advanced plan that in addition to what you get in your basic support, it can offer assistance with setting up merchant services, helping with that payroll, key restore, even some camps assistance. Both men here are going to give us some more insight on some of that. So I am going to introduce now Jordan Parsons and Daniel Surratt, and they're going to help with those technical issues. A little bit about them. They have a combined experience of 15 years with QuickBooks software, including integrated applications and troubleshooting technical data issues. So Daniel, why don't you start us off by sharing some of the ways that our support team can help when it comes to a server?
Yeah, thanks, Lori. Absolutely. So, of course, once you get set up with QuickBooks, first thing you'll want to do is get QuickBooks installed, and that's where we can help. So we can assist with installing and setting up QuickBooks correctly on your server. We can also assist with the setup of hosted environments like RightWorks and Skyline in the event that you're either not having a server that you can install on, or maybe you just want to be able to access QuickBooks from anywhere you need to work, maybe at home, while you're on the plane, that sort of thing. We can get that set up for you so you can continue to work. We can also help with multi-user mode issues when multi-user mode isn't working correctly, or maybe you're experiencing errors with multi-user mode. We can also assist with correcting those issues and getting your company up and running. Common issues with the server setup can include things like QuickBooks services not running correctly, pending updates needing to be applied on either the server or the workstations, maybe issues with the folder where the company file is saved not being shared properly, or even issues with the mapping of the company file or the network. And then, of course, for those of you who may be using QuickBooks Online versions, don't worry. Today's webinar is covering the desktop version of QuickBooks, but we also provide support for our QuickBooks Online users as well. So rest assured that we've got you covered.
All right. So what about some other common issues if it's
Definitely
not on the server?
Yeah, so some common issues you'll see that we can assist with involve connected services with QuickBooks. So for example, that could be bank feed errors where you're importing your bank feeds, your bank statements to import that into QuickBooks so you can perform reconciles and that sort of thing, or maybe even some issues with third-party integrations with QuickBooks, maybe using a third-party app to import or export data to and from QuickBooks. In these situations, we can help to identify the issue and work with your third-party app support to complete setups if you're getting set up for the first time with an app, or it may be you're having issues with sync. We can help successfully sync that application working alongside your third-party app. So a
Great.
few other things here. Next, we'll talk about some things to watch out for in QuickBooks.
Jordan, why don't you get us started on some of the things to watch out for?
Absolutely. So one thing you definitely want to look out for is what's called a ghost user. A prime example of this would be if QuickBooks is telling you that someone is logged into the company file, but no one actually is. One way that you can tell that this has actually happened is if you are trying to access that file and say multi-user mode, but it essentially comes back with a message saying that a specific user is signed in single user mode. Once you go and check with that user and you find that they're not even actually signed in either, it could be leading back to what that ghost user as the issue. Usually a big cause of this would be how you're closing that company file. You definitely want to make sure that you're closing the file by going to File and Close Company Log Off, and not by hitting that X in the top right corner of the QuickBooks. Something else that you definitely want to be aware of would be the QuickBooks updates. Sometimes you'll be prompted for that update is being available. It can be real easy to essentially click off of that notification and still try to sign in like you would as normal. The reason it's important to really make sure that that is updated, though, is to not only make sure that it stays up to date, but it could actually resolve bugs or even add new content to the QuickBooks version. If this does get passed over multiple times, it can actually eventually lead to QuickBooks being at a standstill until that update is completed. If you ever feel that this is something that you would need assistance with, our support team can definitely take care of this for you and get that going in the right direction. So Daniel, do you have anything else that you would like to add to what to look out for?
Definitely. One of the other errors we actually have a screenshot of here is an unrecoverable error. So those can look pretty scary. An unrecoverable error is kind of a catch-all error when QuickBooks is not working properly. It can be caused by a multitude of issues. A few things, for instance, it can be caused by a damaged installation of QuickBooks, data issues in the company file, connection issues with the server that's hosting the company file, or maybe even when there's a problem syncing like integrated applications, for instance, Outlook, Excel, maybe even a third-party application that's importing and exporting data to and from QuickBooks. Some other issues you may be familiar with if you've ever used QuickBooks, are the 6000 level errors. So for instance, the 6123 error. So in that instance, a 6123 error, we also call that a 6000 series error. It's most likely a simple connection issue when opening the company file. Normally resolves by opening the company file again in QuickBooks. This is typically an issue with the network data file or the ND file. This can also be an indicator of other more serious issues with the company file, though, which is definitely why we want to be on the lookout for those. Sometimes you'll get the 6123 error followed by maybe a prompt to run the QuickBooks File Doctor. So in the event that this happens, can be an issue which we call the missing names list error. In this situation, QuickBooks is unable to open the company file. When this happens, it can be caused by corruption with the names list in the file, which is, of course, why we call it the missing names list error. And what will happen is once you do run those tools and log into the company file, you'll see that your names list are missing. So that could be your customers, your vendors, or maybe even your employee list, or all of those lists at one time. This can cause the list to be removed completely. And when this happens, typically have to fall back to a backup copy of the company file, which is why we always suggest periodic backups of your company file. It's super important. In the event that this error happens, or maybe any other error in QuickBooks, you always want to have reliable backups. And it's easier to restore a backup from yesterday or maybe from earlier in the week, as opposed to maybe the last time you closed your books a couple of months ago, because then, of course, you'd have to re-enter all that data, and we definitely want to keep that from happening.
Right.
Another serious issue would be encryption errors. So with encryption errors, they can be caused when the encryption of the company file has been damaged. So, of course, the encryption of the file protects your data. so that it can't be opened by maybe a third-party application that's not QuickBooks, where somebody gets a hold of your password, that sort of thing. The encryption is what helps to protect that file and all that sensitive information there. So when you have this type of damage, it can cause damage to the admin or the secondary users in the company file, sensitive information like credit card numbers for customers, vendor tax IDs, or even employee social security numbers in the event that you're using payroll in QuickBooks. So when these errors occur, definitely not good at all. So when these errors occur, they can present themselves in a lot of different ways. There could be errors in a rebuild or verify, or even errors when you're trying to just simply reset a password for one of your users or the admin user. So while these errors can be serious, we can help to fix those errors or work with our services team to have the file repaired at the database level in the event that the damage is pretty extensive and we need their support.
This is another reason why the managed support is so helpful, because we're clued in on looking for those type things where most people are not, right? And so this is where we can come in, and when we start helping, we can start detecting things that it's like, oh, wait a minute, we could have an issue here.
Exactly. And of course, there's a lot of errors that, the rebuild can fix, but there's others that it can't. And so you see a few examples here: item history, issues with list data in QuickBooks, even issues with transactions. So the support team here, we can help to diagnose these errors, fix the errors, or in the event, of course, the file is corrupted, have your company file escalated for our services team for a repair. Now, some issues may not show in either a rebuild or verify. Maybe QuickBooks is not acting the way it should, not opening correctly, or maybe you're just seeing something kind of crazy in QuickBooks that you're like, doesn't look right. So some issues can also happen with connected services like payroll and merchant services. And so in that regard, I will turn it over to Jordan to kind of discuss some of those issues.
Definitely. So with our advanced support plan, we can work with your payroll provider and assist with technical issues regarding your payroll subscription. To give you an example, if you are in the process of submitting a payroll and all of a sudden an error occurs, we can then work with your payroll provider to get this going in the right direction for you. Another instance where we can also assist with payroll would be if your payroll services need to be updated in a company file. We can work to make sure that that new service key is implemented in the file and get that up to date. We also can assist when issues occur when trying to update payroll tax tables in the company file. So if you ever have issues where you're trying to get to that most recent tax table, it's giving you some error messages there, we can work alongside Intuit in that regard to make sure that there's nothing holding that up in the back end. In addition to payroll, this will also cover technical assistance with your Intuit merchant services. An example for that would be if you're trying to send out the Pay Now link to one of your customers and that information is missing in the email, we can work alongside Intuit to get that taken care of as well, get that straightened out. Another piece that plays a role in both payroll and merchant services would be that Intuit account. With this advanced support plan, we also provide assistance with making sure that the Intuit account information is accessible and up to date via the camps.intuit.com website, just so that way we can make sure you can see everything that you're actually needing to use.
Right.
So with that being said, Daniel, do you care to go over how our support plans work once they get that established with us?
Definitely. So of course, once you're set up with one of our support plans, you're probably wondering how it works. How do you reach out to support when you're having an issue? So that's where we step in here. So once you're set up with our support plan, you'll be set up with the email here on the screen, help@fourlane.com. So when you're having an issue, you'll just send us an email to that email address. Few things you'll want to include in that email. It's going to be the urgency level. So of course, if you're locked out of QuickBooks completely, no one's able to work, that's a very serious issue. So want to increase that urgency level. Also, if you can include some details about your issue, that'll definitely help us to quickly resolve the problem. We'll be better prepared to join the meeting knowing exactly what you have going on in the file, or maybe even be able to do some research. If it's a odd issue that maybe you haven't seen before, we can go ahead and get prepared there for that meeting. Also, just if you would include the best times to contact you. We definitely want to work as best we can with your schedule. That's the whole point of the support team, of course. We want to work with what's best for you. I know a lot of times you don't want to be stuck on hold waiting to get support, and that's where we can step in. So of course, once you send us that email, our admins will respond to your email within an hour, and that's guaranteed. And they'll respond within that hour with a meeting time. Of course, if that doesn't work for you, just let us know and we could definitely reschedule. We're pretty flexible. And then for those of you who maybe are just too busy or you don't like talking on the phone too much, we also offer Slack chat support upon request. So we can touch base with you there in Slack instead of having to do a meeting or a phone call.
That's right. And I love this Slack, because it also, in addition to making it a little bit easier to contact us, it also allows us the ability to keep everybody in that loop informed. So if it is one that does happen to take a little bit longer than just a few minutes to resolve, then everybody can use that as a way. We actually had a client that we did that with because it was a payroll issue that was a little bit challenging, and it took a little bit longer than just a single phone call, but we were able to keep that loop going with that information back and forth to keep everybody in the know. One thing to keep in mind, Daniel, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, was the QuickBooks support time availability. We are available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 Central Time. If it does happen to come in after those hours, we make sure that we respond as soon as we see it in the morning. And as Daniel mentioned, we have a dedicated team that's watching for those, in addition to the support team in addition to Jordan and Daniel as well. So I have a couple of questions for you too, since we still have a few minutes. One of them is, what if you get on, because I know we have the 2 levels. So what if we get on and we see that, there's a latency issue, as an example, right? Things are going really, really slow. Is that something that we can help them with? Because that's not necessarily QuickBooks every time, right?
Yeah, no, we can definitely assist with making sure that we can identify where that latency may be coming from. A lot of times with those instances there, we can also work alongside that IT company there that may be helping monitor your server and connection. And then, of course, if that's something that, we find that if the setup is just not working, we always can help try to find a solution going forward from there as well.
And what about if we do end up with something that is outside of our ability, like payroll, right? We want payroll to be secure. We don't want to be able to see everybody's payroll, but there are times when we just need help. What are some examples of things, not the fixes necessarily, because obviously we don't want to share company information, but what are some things that we've seen that we've been able to assist with?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of the issues that our clients face have to do with third-party apps, and I know we touched on that briefly. A lot of times it may not be necessarily an issue with QuickBooks or your company file, it may not even be an issue with your system, so maybe your operating system or your network. Sometimes there can be issues with third-party applications, and that's where we can step in to assist. We've got years of experience troubleshooting these types of issues, so it's very easy for us to hop onto a call with both yourself and the third-party app support. And if they're struggling with that connection or with a sync, we can go in, take a look at logs, pinpoint where the issue is actually occurring at. With our expertise here, we've worked with QuickBooks for a number of years. So, we've seen a lot of different issues. And so we're definitely able to jump in and help not only you, but your third-party apps also in the event that they're not able to sync. I know that sync definitely saves a lot of time to import and export the data, so you're not having to do all those manual data entries. So we definitely like to hop in there and help as much as we can.
Right. Okay, so what if we have a situation, and Jordan, I'm going to direct this one to you first. So what if we have a situation and it exceeds what our support plan is? So as an example, we get in there and we need help with the reports. So they have the advanced plan that can help with setting up reports, but then they're not sure what that report is telling them. So what would we do there? Would we still be able to assist them?
Oh, for sure. So as far as with the support plan and everything, we can definitely go as far as, as much as we can to help customize that report and everything. But if they're still struggling with, I don't really necessarily understand this report, even though I've got it made now, that's where we can definitely loop in the services team to make sure they can provide training and assistance there, to get that a little bit, better understanding with what they're looking at.
Right. Daniel, what about you? Have you had a situation where you've had to loop in one of the other Fourlane teams?
Absolutely. There's a lot of issues that can happen in QuickBooks where it may present itself as an issue with either the application or your QuickBooks data. Sometimes it's a simple workflow issue. So maybe you have questions on how QuickBooks is supposed to work correctly, how to enter certain transactions a certain way, maybe how to handle certain issues that you're seeing with your profit and loss reports, balance sheet reports, that sort of thing. And that's what's so great about our partnership here at Fourlane. We work closely with our services team. So when we see those types of questions that may not be covered under the support plan where we deal with more of the technical issues, we can get you in touch with our services team, who's more than capable of jumping in to answer any questions you have regarding like workflows, how QuickBooks is supposed to work, and those accounting type questions that you may have.
Yes, very much. Another area that we can assist to is working with the IT team. I think we kind of mentioned that briefly, but we can work with your IT team as well, right, to help with some of the issues that they're seeing, because a lot of times they're seeing the stuff that is going on behind the scenes, and that allows us to get that addressed also.
Absolutely. And where IT is involved, of course, your IT, they're the computer experts, right? They know about Windows and those types of issues. But a lot of times you'll have issues that happen with QuickBooks where it's not necessarily the QuickBooks application that's having the issue. It could be the operating system, maybe a Windows profile that's causing an issue. And we can help work with your IT to help navigate through those issues and pinpoint where the issue occurs. A good example of that could be a licensing error. It's a 3371 error. Typically happens soon after you've installed QuickBooks. It can be an issue where QuickBooks is not able to read the entitlement file correctly. So in other words, QuickBooks isn't able to read the license information that you have for QuickBooks correctly, and it's not able to register that license. So Intuit servers aren't getting that response saying, hey, this is a valid license that's working. So there are a few things, of course, that could be an issue with QuickBooks for that. And we would go through that troubleshooting for those types of errors. But in that situation, a lot of times it's caused by either a corrupted Windows user profile or maybe even a damaged Windows installation. And so in those situations and some of the other situations we addressed earlier also, we can work with your IT to navigate through those troubles, to kind of pinpoint exactly where that issue is occurring, and then provide them the information that they'll need to repair the issue.
Thank you for that. All right, is there anything with the last few minutes that we have that either one of you would like to add before we end today?
I definitely think another piece too to really touch base on as well is, we may have some clients that are using like a hosting provider. That's another piece where we definitely can work alongside that hosting provider to help identify, hey, this is something that is happening in QuickBooks, or this might be something that they need to look at on their back end. We actually can help going through like those onboarding processes with the hosting provider when they're first getting set up, just to make sure that everybody is, on the same page, everybody can log in, and at the end of the day, they're able to access that QuickBooks and that new platform.
Partnership,
Definitely.
right?
For sure.
Yeah, and of course, at the end of the day, we're consultants, so you can come to us with a multitude of issues. And if it's not maybe a support issue or a technical issue, rest assured we can pinpoint those issues and make sure we get you in touch with the appropriate people to get that resolved. Whether that be our services team to help with workflow issues, maybe your IT to assist with system issues, or again, third-party apps we also work with their support team. So we're a great resource to use in the event that you have any issues with QuickBooks. Even if it's not covered under the support plan, we can definitely get you in the right place and get that resolved for you.
All right. Well, I do want to thank everyone for taking time out the schedule today to meet with us. And thank you, Jordan and Daniel, for joining me today and spreading the news. I think this is definitely valuable information that will hopefully help clarify how our support team works